It is NFL Combine Week on the ES DraftCast with Tony Pauline, Tim Wood alongside Tony. Tony, you are digging out from some snow
Mhm.
up in New York. How's that impacting you getting to the Combine?
Well, we'll find out. I mean, one flight has already been canceled. I'm booked on two other flights. I will eventually, knock on wood, get there. Hopefully sooner rather than later. But I like snow. But this is a bad time. Not the first time. I've had other trips to the combine interrupted by snow. But I'll eventually get out to Indianapolis.
Sure. Is How much will this have, just from what you've heard from agents and journalists, is this going to just screw with the Combine in general in terms of flights getting in there?
Well, it will for teams and people covering the combine from the Northeast. I mean, most of the players at the combine are at training facilities in places like Florida and Arizona and Texas. So they're not going to be there. There is a good training facility in New Jersey that players use, but that's only a few players. The players should be able to get there because they're not coming from where the storm is. I talked with the New York Giants yesterday, and they're going to be a little delayed. What you got to have to remember: players arrived on Sunday. A lot of the team personnel and the position coaches for the defensive linemen and linebackers also arrived on Sunday, so they're out there. It's the second wave. It's the offensive players, the offensive coaches who are expected to get out there Tuesday and Wednesday. Like me, they'll be impacted.
Got it. Got it. Well, good luck. Good luck on the travel plans.
Mm.
Exciting week ahead. Already some talk behind the scenes as we get into the first topic this week. A lot of talk going in the combine centers around Tua Tagovailoa. What are you hearing?
Yeah, well, I don't know that there's a lot of talk going into the combine, but if you read the article that was posted on Essentially Sports on Sunday, we're probably going to hear a lot of talk about Tua from the organization, most importantly, and it could be sooner than later. I spoke with people in Tua's camp, and they say they don't know exactly what's going to happen. They would expect the Dolphins to make an announcement soon, but they told me outright Tua is very, very unlikely to be with the Dolphins week one, which means that the Dolphins are either going to trade him or they're going to cut him, which makes sense. I mean, you have a new general manager, you have a new head coach. This is not the new general manager's quarterback. He was selected by Chris Greer, who was fired in the middle of the season last year because Tua never worked out. So the word is from Tua's camp anyway. They expect an announcement from the Dolphins sooner rather than later, and the announcement they expect is that Miami's going to try to get rid of him. They'll probably try and trade him if they can't find any suitors. Who knows? Maybe he gets it cut outright, depending on the impact on the salary cap.
They got a lot of work to do on the cap front. Period. If they're looking to cut him, looking to replace him. Um, what is the quarterback draft possibilities if they want to replace Tua?
Well, obviously, as we talked before, it's basically one and done with Fernando Mendoza at the top. I mean, I don't think Ty Simpson's going to be. I don't think they would take Ty Simpson where they select early part in round one. That would be a bit of a reach. I don't think he's going to be there in round two. Could they take a guy like a Taylor Green from Arkansas day three? Quite possibly. Could they take a Drew Alar from Penn State day three? Quite possibly. I just don't see them with all the needs that they have, especially on the offensive line, especially in the secondary, uh, taking a quarterback, taking a flyer like a Ty Simpson in the first round.
Can you explain to me the Malik Willis hysteria?
Well, yeah, he played a couple of good games, filling in for Jordan Love, and everybody thinks he's the next coming, despite the fact that he's done nothing up until those couple of games that he filled in for Jordan Love. Now, Malik Willis was a good quarterback at Liberty. He was a lot of people thought highly of him. That the year he was drafted, was he the first quarterback, number one rated quarterback? Was Kenny Pickett the number one rated quarterback? I mean, to date, for the most part, they've both turned out to be duds. We know this about Malik Willis. He's got good size. He's athletic. He's got a good arm. He's a high character guy. He's a good guy to have. But you got to turn him into or go. You got to turn him from athlete and thrower into a passer. And I guess, it's like YouTube highlights. People see a couple of things that he did well late in the season, filling in Green Bay, and they fall in love with him. And everybody's looking for that diamond in the rough at the quarterback position.
It just keeps saying to me, like, when will they ever learn? We keep getting these guys, it's like Matt Castle all over again. I mean, listen, like Malik Willis did it, Mac Jones did it. Why is Mac Jones not being talked about and
Yeah.
again, like as a $40 million guy, it's it always interests me how the cycle just repeats itself.
And I think Sam Darnold is just going to exacerbate that
Yeah.
conversation because he was so bad early in his career. Minnesota was able to find a way to turn him around rather than keep him. They traded him. He wins a Super Bowl with Seattle.
Great point. Great point. Well, we will see how that plays out. See how the topic evolves at the combine, and of course we'll get all of Tony's reporting from the combine on EssentiallySports.com. Uh, Other top story this week: Joey Aguilar
Yeah.
from Tennessee
Yeah.
denied another season of eligibility.
It's kind of strange, which is why, when you're relying on the courts to do this rather than, a rule in place, Aguilar does not get the additional year of eligibility, basing his case on Diego Pavia, who got the extra year of eligibility when the court said, no, your junior college, the years you played at junior college don't count towards your NC1AA eligibility. Aguilar tries that same defense, and the courts say no. So, like I said, I believe last podcast, what I think will eventually happen is they keep talking about college players being unionized. If that ever happens, there will be a collective bargaining agreement where there will be some sort of rule that, once you enter college, you have X number of years to fulfill your eligibility, and that's it.
It's going to be interesting when we look back on this 10, 15 years. This is going to be the wild, wild west era, right? I mean, just of how this is all happening and the rules evolving so quickly.
May not take that long. It may take 4 to 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely. So Aguiar, he was on the draft list.
Right.
He was on the combine
Combine.
list.
Right.
So gonna be there, I would assume. Yes.
That's what the reports are. He was invited, so he's going to be there. There are situations in the past where players have been invited to the combine. They didn't go because they got an extra year of eligibility. I've known cases of players who were invited to the combine didn't go because they were retiring from football. So I mean, Aguilar is going to be there. He's not going to impact the draft. He's a late round guy. He's a nice game manager. Doesn't have a huge arm. Is not a great NFL prospect. I don't think that this is not tip the scales in any significant fashion from the quarterback position or at the quarterback position.
All right, let's get into your scouts notebook for this week. Who are the players that have the most to gain at the combine, assuming they work out?
Yeah, well, first would be Ty Simpson, who has already announced that he's going to work out at the combine, and I think he's making the right decision. Ty Simpson, who we've talked about, questionable decision to enter the NFL draft, first year starter at Alabama, played well in September and October. His game kind of fell off in November. He's an older guy. How are teams going to look at him being just a 1 year starter at Alabama? Remember, the last 1 year starter at Alabama was Mac Jones, and he won a national title. Was a mid first round choice. Obviously, has not had the NFL career that many people expected. I think with Ty Simpson, the combine is set up perfectly for Ty Simpson in the sense that when you watch Ty Simpson on film, he's got a decent arm. He's accurate. I mean, he shows the ability to precisely place many of his throws. He can get the ball downfield, which is everything you want at the combine. Ty Simpson's problem on film is he stares down the primary target too long and he gives away his throws. That doesn't matter at the combine. You got to be accurate at the combine. You got to get in sync with receivers that you basically just met 48 hours ago. The deep out where the players run 30, 35 yards in a straight line, then make a right-hand turn and make a left-hand turn. You got to be accurate with those throws, and you got to throw those passes with speed, which Ty Simpson, on film anyway, shows the ability to do. So I think it's important, especially after he missed the Senior Bowl. that he has a good combine, and I think he's making the right decision. Credit to him for already stating that he's going to work out at the combine. He's going to do the position drills. I think Garrett Nussmeier, the quarterback from LSU, is another quarterback that's got to have a good combine. He's sort of the opposite of Ty Simpson in the sense that he does a solid job reading plays, seeing the field, reading defenses, but he doesn't have a big arm. Garrett Nussmeier, when the quarterbacks take the field on Saturday, you want to see those passes. Do they have good speed? Is he driving deep throws? Or on those deep throws, are the receivers slowing up in their patterns and waiting for the ball to arrive? If that happens, it's not going to be a good situation for Nussmeier, and I think he'll drop down draft boards because teams will say he can't play in a vertical offense. He's a timing or a West Coast type of quarterback, which I think he is anyway. But if he can prove otherwise, if he can drive the ball down the field and surprise teams with better than expected arm strength, he's going to really enhance his draft stock.
How much does he enhance it? Best case, do you think?
Maybe late day two. I think he's more of a day three guy. I know people are over the moon about his performance in the Senior Bowl game, but it was a different story during Senior Bowl practices. He didn't show that arm strength. He was making a lot of questionable throws. He's a gamer, which is great, but it's a different game on Sunday. So I mean, if he really turns somebody on, I think he could move into day two. Remember, Bo Nix did not have a good combine, but Sean Payton and the Broncos, specifically Sean Payton, were fixated on Bo Nix. So I mean, there could be a team that is fixated on Nussmeier, and if he shows good arm strength in the combine, say, hey, listen, we're not going to wait. We're not going to risk taking him, early day three. We're going to take him somewhere in the third round.
Who else? Who else is on your radar?
Defense Akeem Mesidor of Miami. People love the film, and they should. I mean, all the talk was about Ruben Bain at Miami, Ruben Bain. But Akeem Mesidor also caused a lot of impact. I mean, he was a guy who allowed Ruben Bain to do certain things. And when teams were doubling Ruben Bain, it was Akeem Mesidor who was making the plays or forcing the action. Now, Akeem Mesidor is expected to be about 6'2", 270 pounds. How athletic is he? Because a guy that's that small, 6'2", 270, he's got to be very athletic. If he's, what position the team see him at? Is he a defensive end in a four-man front? Can he stand over tackle? Those testing numbers, assuming again that he works out at the combine, will be very important for Akeem Mesidor. Aidan Fisher, the linebacker of Indiana, another guy. I mean, just a great player on Saturday, whether it's the regular season, whether it's through the college football playoffs. You saw Aidan Fisher making play after play after play against the run in coverage. I mean, he's a guy who'd be downfield 35 yards in coverage, covering tight ends. He's 6 foot, just over 6 foot tall. He's going to go about 230 pounds. How fast does he run? A guy that small has got to run really fast. And what I mean by really fast for Aidan Fisher is he's going to have to run in the low 4.6s, high 4.5s to secure himself as a day two player. The film says he's top 75. The athletic testing numbers could push him out. And some of those testing numbers are very important because remember, the best player that Aidan Fisher faced on Saturday will be a second teamer on Sunday. So everything is accelerated, the size, the speed, and everything else. And then our friend Emmanuel McNeil Warren, who I've written about a couple times, literally since the Senior Bowl, does he run at the 40? As just to remind people, as I was told, and I wrote about it, people from Toledo told me that Emmanuel McNeil Warren pulled out of the Senior Bowl because he was afraid he was going to be exposed because of his lack of speed. There were some potential other issues with McNeil Warren that have to be checked out. Let's see if he runs when the defensive backs take the field at Lucas Oil Stadium on Friday. If he doesn't run the 40, it's going to be another red flag. Didn't pulled out of the Senior Bowl, doesn't run at the combine. He's going to roll the dice, and I don't know that for a fact. I'm just putting out a hypothetical there. Maybe roll the dice at his pro day workout. There were a lot of questions and concerns about McNeil Warren's speed. He could answer them at the combine, or he could just make them even worse if he doesn't run.
How long can you avoid the spot? You want to be a Sunday player. How long can you avoid answering the bell here?
We've seen a lot of players in the past and recently not even work out. So I mean, but again, most of those players are first round type guys, top half of round one guys that don't work out. I mean, Marvin Harrison really didn't do anything before he was selected early in the draft, but that's Marvin Harrison. It's not Emmanuel McNeil Warren. So a guy like that, really, teams want to get testing numbers down. Uh, we'll see. I mean, there's more and more recent cases where players will do minimal testing before the draft because you're trying to hide something. Now, again, that doesn't mean that they're not going to be good players in the NFL. So that's not what I'm saying, but it will hurt their draft stock.
How much can a guy like Fisher, when I look at your scouting report for him, you say inefficient, does not always take proper angles to the action. How
Right.
much does him improving those little spots, does he work on those spots? Is he trying to show that at the combine, or is it just all about the measurables?
You're not going to be able to show that at the combine because they don't play any live action football at the combine. You show that at the Senior Bowl, you show that at the Shrine Bowl. Now, he wasn't at the Senior Bowl because Indiana won the national championship, 8 days before Senior Bowl practices start. So it's understandable. But there's
Right.
nothing about inefficiency because they don't do any live action. They don't do enough ball drills where he's going to prove that he's, righted the ship as far as taking proper angles to the action. For Fisher, a guy who, like I said, junior timing day, I think he was 6 foot 1/2 inch, 232 pounds. It's not only about the measurables, it's when he gets up there on weigh-ins, people are going to look at him and say, yeah, he can comfortably put on 10 to 15 more pounds. Or they're going to say, as I said in my scouting report, he may be physically tapped out. He may not get much bigger, and you're getting what you see as far as Aidan Fisher, a real good football player who may have reached his peak.
How do the interviews? How much do we measure how many teams are interviewing players? Like, what does that matter in terms of the eyeballs on all the interviews at the combine?
Well, the interviews are very important, especially the way players respond to the interviews. I mean, they will ask some very tough questions. I wrote about it in an article that'll be up in the newsletter this week. Personal experiences that I know speaking with players, where they were really challenged at those interviews, where they were screamed at. One guy, Ezra Cleveland, the offensive lineman with the Jacksonville Jaguars, told me that an NFC East team was screaming at him about how his film was dog crap. Although they didn't use the word crap, they used another four-letter word. And I asked Ezra, and he said the guy was in his face screaming. I was like, "Well, what did you do?" He says, "I laughed." He said, "I laughed not only because not only was it not true." He said, "But when the guy stopped yelling at me, his lips were still moving, but he wasn't talking." So that's one way to approach it. Then you get a guy like Ja'Kai Polite. People may remember Ja'Kai Polite, the outstanding edge rusher from Florida, who basically froze up in the interviews when they were asking him some tough questions, and then he went out and complained about it in the press. And that is a bit major red flag. And we've seen it. Ja'Kai Polite went from a potential first round pick to a third round pick and has had a marginal NFL career. So sometimes those interviews and the way players react to those interviews are foreshadowing of what's to come.
I got to imagine the just beyond the physical training that goes on at these training centers is a lot of media training, a lot of PR training.
It's all rehearsed. There's no doubt about it. It's absolutely all rehearsed. They run through interviews. They run through press conferences. So yeah, it's not just they're not just practicing starts for the 40. They're not just doing bench press. They're absolutely going through rehearsals for what the players may face during interviews.
Let's hit the look back button here. You got a story from the 2002 combine
Yeah.
about Josh McCown.
Josh McCown, people may remember him, guy who had a long NFL career. Now, the way to set this up is this. Back in the day, they used to have the practice quarterbacks and the feature quarterbacks. The practice quarterbacks were the guys that came out and threw for the defensive backs, the linebackers, and the tight ends. And then the feature quarterbacks were those who practiced with the wide receivers and the running backs and the feature quarterbacks were the ones that you saw when the NFL Network did their live broadcast of combine workouts on. It used to be Sunday when the quarterbacks used to work out. Now it's Saturday, and all the big names were there. And the practice quarterbacks were basically left. They were like scout. They were like the scout squad. I mean, they were practicing. They were throwing not so much to the top receivers, but to everybody else. It's kind of changed in that there are no more practice quarterbacks, although you will rarely see a top name quarterback on the field throwing to the defensive backs or the linebackers Thursday and Friday. But one great story is, practice quarterbacks and the guys who throw for the defensive backs can actually help themselves at the combine. And one such case was Josh McCown. I'll never forget this. McCown came out of Sam Houston State. He was labeled as a practice quarterback, and he practiced throughout the week. He practiced with the tight ends, the running backs, with the receivers. And this is when the combine used to end on a Tuesday. And the combine ended with the defensive backs on a Tuesday. And it was 4 days later, and Josh McCown was out there throwing 60-yard darts down the field during secondary drills, during defensive back drills, to the point where, and this is actually a funny story, some of the offensive coordinators who would have left after the quarterbacks worked out on Saturday, they hung around just to watch Josh McCown because he had such a great arm, watch him throw to the defensive backs. I will never forget standing next to Paul Hackett, who was then the offensive coordinator of the New York Jets, and one of the Jet assistants saying, "Come on, coach, we got to get out of here or we're going to miss our flight." And Paul Hackett didn't want to leave because he was enamored with Josh McCown, because McCown was having an incredible throwing workout, throwing the ball downfield to the defensive backs. And people remember a couple of years ago, Josh Milton, during his
Joe Milton,
quarterback
yeah.
Joe Milton, just zinging the ball 80 yards downfield during the quarterback drills. Josh McCown was doing that, every fifth rep for defensive backs. He ended up, he was a guy who everyone thought free agent late round. He ended up being selected in the third round that year in the draft. Had a very long NFL career.
Absolutely.
Was a solid starter, not a great starter. But it was the working out as a practice quarterback at the combine and the arm strength that really set his draft trajectory north.
That's probably the beginning of McCown, being in the right place at the right time, owning the moments. He always seemed to own the moments. Anytime he got moments throughout his career, long career, like you said, not particularly distinguished as a starter, but he had moments. He had enough moments, so he had longevity.
And it's because he's coachable. The combine further proved that he had the physical traits, the physical skills, especially the arm strength, to play on Sunday. And he turned out to be a very coachable guy who was able to absorb systems. Ironic that the Jets never drafted him in 2002, but he eventually did sign with the New York Jets. I believe he played 2 seasons with them. That's part of the equation: the coachability plus the physical traits.
Does he rank up there in terms of just one of the guys that probably had one of the more perfect combines through the years for you?
Well, I don't remember to be honest with you, I don't remember McCown's combine workout with the receivers. I remember Joey Harrington had an incredible workout the year he was, and that was, I believe, 2001. I may need to, that may be, no, maybe 2003. You may have to check me on that one, where Joey Harrington actually had the flu and he could barely talk during the press interviews. And then he went out and he threw lights out. So, listen, McCown did what he had to do with the resources that were given to him, the fact that he was a backup quarterback. There was another kid from Arkansas, let me look him up real quick, who had a lot of off the field issues that had just a phenomenal combine workout. Name escapes me. Arkansas, I'm looking at the list here, and that would be, he was a late round pick. Can't find him on my list here. It wasn't Brandon Allen. It was before Brandon Allen. It wasn't Tyler Wilson. If I find it, I'll let you know the name.
Harrington was 2002.
Right. Okay. So Harrington was the same year as McCown. In other words,
Yep.
what we're saying. Ironic.
Yeah, for sure. So, in terms of this draft class, Tony, a lot of talk about how
Ryan Mallett.
big.
Ryan Mallett was the quarterback, third rounder from Arkansas, that had just a phenomenal combine
I
workout.
should have remembered that being a Patriots guy too.
I,
Yeah,
I mean, just not great arm strength, great accuracy, great timing, and that's what you're looking for at the combine. Because, like I said, they're throwing to guys that they barely know, met 48 hours earlier. In the case of Ryan Mallett, if memory serves me, he threw it at Lucas Oil Stadium, so it's probably the first time he ever stepped on the field there.
he flamed out pretty quick in his NFL career, but didn't fit in. Did what you talk about coachable? He ended up not being very coachable.
A lot of off the field issues with Ryan Mallett.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, in terms of a lot of talk about what this class is, what this class isn't, Tony. Um, is there a previous draft class that is a comp for you to this draft class?
I mean, it's tough because you're talking about it on paper right now,
Yeah,
so you don't know
absolutely.
how it's going to work out. I know when we were talking before, people said the 2017 draft class. I wouldn't even compare it to the 2017 draft class because while 2017 was not a very good class, it did produce Myles Garrett, who's a phenomenal player, and there were no
And
Myles Garrett
Mahomes.
of uh, of players in this draft. You did have Christian McCaffrey, did have Patrick Mahomes, as you said. So yes, but again, I mean, I don't even see a Patrick Mahomes in this class.
No, I think 2000. I think that conversation we were having earlier, honestly, had more to do with like the best draft classes. I don't think in terms of. I was kind of shaking my head during that conversation, like, oh no, 2017. That's probably up there in terms of like this draft class. Everybody's talking being mediocre.
Yeah, which it is. I mean, there's no except for Mendoza, who I like a lot, and I'll write about him. I got some notes on him, what people are saying about him. No real generational talents in this year's class. On paper, anyway. We'll have to wait and see what happens 2 or 3 years down the road.
Is there one guy that jumps off to you as the more film that you've been watching that could be a surprise top five draft has an amazing combine, great interviews, almost warrants the second look by a lot of folks, and starts to jump up boards?
Well, I mean, that's a loaded question because if you're basing it on the film that I've watched, I've already talked about him and David Bailey. That would be the
Sure.
player, and now he is basically affirmed or confirmed as a top five pick. So
Yeah.
that basically that ship has sailed. But could there be a surprise pick early in the draft? I think depending on the combine and how they do and how they measure, which we'll get into, and depending on if the Arizona Cardinals can sign Breece Hall in free agency or get Breece Hall in free agency, you could see one of the offensive tackles, either Spencer Fano or Francis Mauielga, end up, as a top five, top four pick. I don't agree with it, but you look at the Cardinals; they have a desperate need at right tackle. Maybe they fill that hole at running back. Probably going to need a quarterback because Kyler Murray's likely on his way out. Uh, but
A lot of talk about Willis going to the Cardinals.
if you read my piece on Sunday, that's exactly what people think is going to happen. But
Yep.
a lot has to play out before that.
Absolutely. It really does. There's so many pieces to still play out, and all these boards that we're looking at, we're not factoring in how the free agents, how those dominoes fall,
Well, your
because it's
board
going to
should
be a lot of need too.
well, your board shouldn't change because of free agency. I mean, David Bailey is going to be a top five pick, regardless of whether or not the New York Jets, hypothetically, the Tennessee Titans go out and sign a free agent. a pass rusher in free agency. The board shouldn't change. I mean, a mock draft may change. Team needs will definitely change, but your
Right.
board shouldn't
Your
change
big
based on.
board's not changing. It's just the needs and where guys get slotted in could definitely change because of how free agency plays out.
Absolutely will change.
What in terms of your experience through the combine through the years, what are teams actually looking for and actually caring about in a prospect when they're doing the interviews, when they're doing their evaluations?
Well, I mean, it's not any. It's not. You can't broad brush it. I mean, first of all, the
Yeah.
combine is about expectations. If a guy is expected, a defensive back is expected to run a 4.45, and he runs in the 4.5s, that's a red flag. If he's expected to run a 4.45 and he runs a 4.3, that's gonna go. That's a check in the positive column. Same thing with the interviews. I mean, if you have to remember, NFL teams are going to have will already have information, a lot of information, background information on these players before they go into the interviews. So if there are serious questions that a prospect has to answer, and he answers them honestly, and teams buy into his answer, that's going to help him. If he fumbles or teams don't believe him, that's going to be a problem. So it's all based on the expectation and what the information teams have available to them on those players before they interview them, before the medicals, before the tests. It's not one team is looking for, it's not that they're looking for a specific on defensive backs or quarterbacks. It's all different. I mean, what do teams care about? There are teams like the Dallas Cowboys who are willing to roll the dice on players both medically and as far as characters concerns because they think they're going to get a good football player. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't.
Is there one position historically that's under more pressure at the combine?
Well, I don't know if they're under more pressure, but the defensive backs have to run well. I mean, if you're a defensive back and you go to the combine and you run in the 4.6s, that's a red flag. That's going to be a lot of problems. If you run a decent time being 4.5 or below, that's going to help you. But I don't want to say it's under pressure, but the defensive backs have to test well athletically. And I've seen multiple defensive backs go to the combine. They run in the 4.6s and they destroy their draft stock. Doesn't mean that they're not going to be good players at the next level. They could be put in a specific system, to kind of hide their lack of speed. They could also be guys who, while they run 4.6s for the stopwatch, they play much faster. But the DBs have to turn in good 40 times or their draft stock will drop.
As interested as I am in the combine, I'm even more fascinated what the 2 weeks before the combine look like. How they train a guy up, how they wind the training down, how they almost, especially with the way the weather's been all over the map, cold, hot, how you hermetically seal a guy up to make sure he doesn't get sick ahead of the combine. There's so many factors that can go into a guy having a less than stellar performance. It the wind up to the combine fascinates me almost as much as the combine.
Well, you say 2 weeks. In some instances, it's 2 months because a lot of
Sure.
these guys will enter combine training literally after the first of the year, depending on if their team's in the bowl games, if they're playing in a national championship game. You got the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl game in there. As far as the weather, a lot of these places, except for Florida, but even in Florida, you go to Texas, most of these places are indoors as far as being sick. I mean, it is what it is. You can't really take oil of oregano if you're into that to prevent from being sick. But it's I mean
Did you say
it's
oregano?
all what's that? I'm sorry.
Did you say oregano?
Oil of oregano. Yes, it's
Oil
supposed
of
to prevent
oregano.
norovirus. Um, but I don't think it's when the guys get out there and it's long days for them. The workouts, on-field workouts are the final things that take place after 3 days of medical testing, after 3 days of interviews. So it's the very last thing that takes place. A lot of people feel that the on-field workout should actually be the first thing that takes place. Players get there on a Monday, Tuesday morning, they're on the field working out, then they go through the medicals, then they go through the interviews, because that is the most mentally grueling and mentally taxing part of the combine.
Do they almost do that on purpose to put them through the mental grind and then see how they react physically?
No, I think in the case of medicals, they have to make sure the guys are healthy. I mean, we talked about last week, in the case of Brian Mandeville, where uh, medical basically forced retirement because it saved his life. And there's other instances now you'll see where you will read where players are not allowed to work out because something popped up in their medicals. And what usually pops up is the potential of a Jones fracture. Uh, they see that a guy either has a stress fracture or he's about to have a stress fracture, and they tell him you can't work out because combine doesn't want a guy to get injured during their event, and then potentially they're liable. So I don't think it's done that way. I think it's just part of the schedule. Plus, they want to get the medicals in before they let a guy on the field to work out.
The liability you brought that. I mean, the liability that comes into play now with these guys being like, you know, $100 million commodities now. Um, it's almost it's almost interesting just that the combine even exists still, given the liability.
I don't. Yeah, no, I don't agree with that. I mean, basically, the combine is one big job interview, and if a guy doesn't want to go to the combine, doesn't want to work out, he doesn't want to, be part of the process. It could also be the red flag of things to come in the future.
For sure. Yeah, it's just, you look at guys opting out of bowl games, and it's like
But
just
that's also
that sort of trend.
that is also kind of we see more guys participating in bowl games now because of NIL deals, because the NIL deals are structured that the last payment from the school in the contract is the highest payment, and the last payment is reliant on these guys playing in bowl games. So even there, we've seen it sort of yeah, you've seen a lot of players, back out, no doubt about it. But we've also, you remember Shador Sanders. Shador Sanders played in his bowl game. Why? Well, because this contract said if he didn't play NIL contract said if he didn't play in the ball game, he wasn't going to get that last payment, which was a large amount of money. And he's not alone. There were other players as well. I just pointed him out because
For sure.
knowing about the situation.
Just the pointing the NIL factor in there is important for sure, and understanding how it's changing on a dime in terms of accountability.
Absolutely.
All right, it's time for the fan mailbag, and a huge shout out to everyone. Some great questions. Just keep them coming. Keep them coming on the newsletter. Before we get to that, I do want to point out the draft board. We've talked a lot about big board and positioning. Uh, the draft board rolls on essentiallysports.com. A lot of work continues to be put in behind the scenes by Tony, by our tech team. Uh, lot of positioning left to coming out of the combine. So check out the 2006 NFL draft board, uh, starring Tony Pauline with all his evaluations on essentiallysports.com.
Starring is a bit of a stretch there,
Well, I
but
mean,
yeah,
look at the
I mean,
picture, man. The picture is fantastic.
they did upload the. I'm looking at it now. They did upload all the Big 12 uh, reports, which I'm pretty grateful for. So now you can get the information. You get the scouting reports on David Bailey and Spencer Fano and Caleb Lemieux and players like that. When I get back from the combine, we'll be updating the board, but more importantly, we will also be inputting the Big Ten scouting reports, which I did the past 2 weekends. They'll be input, and I'm sure by the middle of March, maybe third week of March, we'll have the SEC reports there. So there'll be a lot of information there to keep NFL fans, draft fans very busy.
One of the little things that we've updated over the last couple weeks, added one digit to Tony's
Yes.
grades to make them stand out a little bit more. So
Yeah.
just a lot of constant changes happening on this board, and certainly more to come after the combine. So check out the draft board, the big board on essentiallysports.com. You'll see it right off the homepage. So little shout out there to all the work you've put in there. Hugely appreciated. All right, to the fan mailbag. First question this week: thoughts on who the Jets will draft? It just the questions never end when it comes to the New York Jets.
No. I think, well, obviously, I feel confident saying it's going to be a defensive player. I know this. When I was at the combine last year, when I left the combine, I came out of it with a good feeling that Armand Memba was their guy after talking with people. We'll see if I can zero it down when I get back from the combine, assuming I get to the combine. If I can zero down on who the Jets are going to draft. I mean, people say Arvell Reese. Other people say Ruben Bain. They've invested a lot of early draft capital in pass rushers, prior to Aaron Glenn taking over. I happen to think Caleb Downs is in the equation. Hopefully, I'll know more a week from now.
I'm seeing David Bailey there in a lot, and we
I
already
don't
talked a
understand
lot
that.
about that. I'm seeing it on a lot of mock drafts, and I just almost want to kind of send them a direct link to some of your stuff, just pointing out why that just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, especially in the format front. Yeah, I mean, again, I guess maybe they're going with top athletes available on their board, but I love Bailey. Just doesn't make a lot of sense for the Jets, in my opinion.
Absolutely. All right, next question. Will the NFL ever consider forcing draft prospects to throw and participate at the combine?
No,
Combine.
they could never force anybody to participate in the combine or take part in the on-field workouts. What I am surprised of is this, and I mentioned this a couple of years ago, as the NFL combine became more and more bigger business, as it went from the NFL network onto major networks like ABC Sports. I'm really surprised that the agents haven't demanded a fee for their player to perform at the combine because that's commercial. That's what commercialization is. That's what marketing is. The NFL has the quarterback workout on ABC television, on NFL Network. They sell ads. Well, they're there to watch the players work out. So will they ever force a player to work out? No, but I don't think it's out of the question that they give bonuses to players to work out, and it only makes sense because the broadcasting of the NFL Combine, is a money making operation. Same thing with all the fans at the Combine. I'm at Combine workouts since 2000. Now they let fans in. Fans don't pay to get in, but the concession stands are open. People are walking around with nachos. I'm trying to watch the workout. Even people in the media section passing in front of me. Sit down until there's a break in the workout. Get your nachos later. Get your pretzels later. I want to watch the quarterbacks throw. Funny story about that from last year. But again, to answer the question, no, they will never force them to work out. But I'm surprised that the agents have not demanded an appearance fee, considering what big business the combine is now.
What's the funny story? We're gonna name names.
I'm not 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 going to get into it.
Got it. Got it. All right. Third question. The Chiefs are
Yeah.
facing trouble at the wide receiver position.
Right.
Does Rashee Rice's issue force them to prioritize drafting a wide receiver?
Well, it's not just Rashee Rice. It's the fact that Xavier Worthy has not panned out, despite the fact that they traded up to get him. Rashee Rice's issues date back to his days at SMU, which I had a story on. So the Chiefs knew what they were getting into, or at least they should have done. If Tony Pauline knew the situation with Rashee Rice at SMU, I'm sure the Kansas City Chiefs knew, and they went with it. Great receiver on the field, a train wreck at times off the field. To answer the question, yes. I mean, I am not in favor of a receiver being selected in the top 10 in this year's draft. I could absolutely see the Chiefs taking a receiver with the ninth pick because of the need there, because of the fact that, you don't want to waste Patrick Mahomes' best years, and that's what's happening with their problems on the offensive line, with their problems at receiver.
Is there a receiver you favor if they went that way? I
Probably
look at like
Cardinal.
mock draft database, and mock draft database has Makai Lemon as kind of the consensus pick at number 9 if they're going receiver.
The problem is Makai Lemon's like a lot of the receivers they already have on the depth chart. I think that Cardinal Tate, a bigger guy, more of a possession sturdier guy. I like Makai Lemon, but I just think Cardinal Tate's more somebody they need, and he's my number one receiver.
And again, they got this. And you're plugged in. You're plugged in with the Giants, but these mock drafters have Tate going at 5 to the Giants, and
It, yeah,
it just
that's
doesn't make
insane as far as
sense.
I'm concerned. Well, I mean, it makes sense in that the Giants need a receiver to pair with Malik Neighbors and another receiver for Jackson Dart to throw the ball to.
But right there, though, yeah.
Rondell Robinson is a free agent. I don't think they're going to re-sign him. Robinson has wanted an extension the past couple of years. He's probably going to test the free agent market. So it makes sense as far as the need when you look at needs. But I mean, again, I don't see I don't see any receiver being a top 10 prospect in this draft. Never mind the fact that you could have Arvell Reese there for the Giants. You could have Caleb Downs there. You could have another player there that's higher rated that also fills the need for the Giants.
This is where it always amuses me to see where common sense gets thrown out just in favor of fan service almost.
Right. Well, I mean, the other thing you have to look at is, John Harbaugh is there with the Giants now, and you look at how much early draft capital when John Harbaugh was with the Ravens, uh, the franchise used on receivers in the first round, and except for Zay Flowers, a lot of it never panned out. So, is he going to use a top 10 pick, a top 5 pick on a receiver? To me, that's kind of questionable.
Let's turn to the Cowboys. Cowboys need a top pass rusher. Do you think Jerry Jones could make a bold move up to the top 5 and make a push for Reuben Bain Jr. or someone else?
Jerry Jones, yes. I mean, you never know. He trades up to get Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons turns out to be an outstanding player. Then he trades Micah Parsons because he wants a contract extension. So you never know with Jerry Jones. But the fact is this: pass rushers, edge rushers are one of the strongest positions in this year's draft. You can make the argument it is the strongest position. The Cowboys have need. They don't just need an edge rusher. They need an off-ball linebacker. They need a cornerback. So it's not just one position that's going to throw them or throw their defense over the top. So is it worth trading away draft capital to move up and get that pass rusher where you're going to have to give away picks that could fill those other needs? In my opinion, no. But with Jerry Jones, you never do know.
Exactly. It's going to be he likes it that way, right? He likes it that way. He likes to because now he becomes the talk of the draft. If what will Jerry do? Will Jerry trade up? So he he's a master manipulator of the media. You won't hear. I don't think you'll hear much from him before the draft. He'll just let everybody else build the hype.
Well, I mean, the common sense has to play into it, and you're right about that. I mean, if you remember a year ago, they were talking about Deion Sanders. The talk was Deion Sanders becoming the next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. And as I wrote with the firm I was with at the time, it was never happening. It was just Jerry Jones trying to keep the Dallas Cowboys front and center in the media because nothing was going on for the team.
And it worked. It worked. Like you said, it was a pipe dream. It was never a realistic, but it was great fodder for First Take, I guess.
And it was they talked about it every day.
Every day. All right, last question this week, Tony. Is this a weak top 10 class, or is it just lacking star buzz?
I think both. I mean, there's no real stars except for Fernando Mendoza. The stars, as far as the media is concerned, are the quarterbacks, and you just have one guy there. But when you look at it from an NFL team point of view, they like tackles, specifically left tackles. There's no top left tackle in the draft. They like a lot of cornerbacks. There's no cornerback that's a top 10 player in the draft. And they like defensive tackles. There's no defensive tackle, top 10 defensive tackle in the draft. So I think it's a little bit of both. From the media, there's no stars except for Fernando Mendoza. From a team's point of view, the positions that they prioritize are not available, or there's no great star, there's no great top end talent at those positions as we've seen in the past.
All right, sir. That's another great show on the books for us. We'll see some daily insider reports from you. We'll see some reports on the combine itself, some reports from just kind of hearing the scuttlebutt in the halls of the convention center from you. Halls of Lucas Oil.
Assuming I get out there, yes. We'll see if they can. You got an extra shovel, go out there and plow LaGuardia Airport so I can get out to Indianapolis. But I will eventually get out there. The sooner I get out there, the better. But
Just a
we'll have a
matter of
lot of
when.
exactly.
Well, we got Tony there. We've got a second reporter there this year, Stephanie Ote. Will be there doing some video for us as well. You'll see more about that on essentiallysports.com and on our socials in the next couple of days. But I wish you all the success in getting there, sir, and look forward to seeing all the reporting from the combine.
So do I. So on both ends. So let's cross your fingers and hope. If we get out there, there'll be a lot of good stuff. That's for sure.
Fantastic. All right, sir. Another great show. Much appreciated as always.
We'll see you next week.